Former assistant to President Trump, former White House trade advisor, and author of a new book called In Trump Time, Peter Navarro. Welcome to the program, Peter. How are you, sir?
I couldn't be more delighted to be with you today to talk about In Trump Time and this crumbling supply chain we're facing. You know that the whole ethos of the Trump administration was buy American, hire American.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have your factories here, it's just an axiomatic that you'll have your supply chains here. If you offshore your factories, the supply chains go with them. So at least a good part of the problem we're facing now is the power of corporate America to send our jobs offshore, chasing that sweatshop labor. And they always tell us that it's what we call in economics a black swan event, low tail risk. That somehow those supply chains will be disrupted. But boy, that tail risk is looking like a big tail right now. And,
Peter, I tell you, it is. We didn't learn anything. I mean, one of the things that I think shocked America when we shut down for the first 15 days was, wait a minute, what do you mean we don't make any of our own medicine? We get it all from China, or 90+% from China? That seems crazy. We're not talking about bringing any of the essential stuff back here to America. We're building back better, which is a total great reset scam. But we're not doing the common sense things that everyone knows we should do.
Well, a tale of two packages, right? When I was in the administration, we were, I document this in detail in the In Trump Time book, we were trying to pass a $2 trillion package. But the primary focus on it, besides providing some short-term aid to people who really needed it, was bringing our factories on shore, our essential medicines. And if you contrast that, like what's in that $2 trillion package, with what the Democrats are trying to pass now, it's what we call in math an empty set, right? What the Democrats want to do is just spend a bunch of money with no strategic purpose whatsoever, with no thought of solving our supply chain crisis. And, you don't know what you got till it's gone. I think to myself, what is it, folks who voted against Trump, what didn't you like? Was it the strong economic growth, the rising real wages for blue-collar Americans, North Korea keeping their missiles on the ground, Iran at peace, cracking down on communist China, securing our southern border, or was it those tweets that really kind of annoyed you? And now you got you went from the best president ever to the worst. But I would be risk. You mentioned Fauci in part of your intro. I mean, in chapter 2 of the In Trump Time book, I have my first meeting with him, and yes, it was over that China travel ban. And if you remember, January 28, 2020, this was like the dawn of the pandemic. There were really only 3 people in the White House who was taking the virus seriously. It was President, me, and O'Brien, the National Security Advisor, right? And the boss sends me to the sit room to argue lobby the task force on behalf of the ban. And I go in there, and it's like there's nothing but bogeys in there. Like Mulvaney's at the end of the table, acting chief of staff. He's against it. I got Pompeo's hack, my left shoulder. He's against it. Orville Redenbacher, doppelganger, but the bumbling Robert Redfield at the CDC, and Azar sitting next to him. But there's this little guy, Glenn. He's sitting across there with his little round glass, didn't know him from Adam, didn't know he walked on water, didn't know he was a saint, didn't know he was a media darling.
Didn't know that he was the highest paid government official in all of America?
No friggin' eye. He was just a guy sitting across from me at high noon, which would have some symbolism, right? And 2 minutes in, it's all in the In Trump Time book. It's all documented. I'm in a violent shouting match with this guy, and all he could keep saying over and over again is that travel bans don't work. And I go, dude, I actually said dude to him. I said, dude, it's like, you mean to tell me it's like 20,000 Chinese nationals coming in, a lot of them from Wuhan are likely lit up like a Christmas tree with virus, coming into LAX and O'Hare and Kennedy. Are you telling me that we're better off, come on down? And he held that position I beat him that day because the boss 2 days later would do the travel ad. But here's what was really important about that day. It wasn't just that he was so wrong about the virus right then. We find out later on that he got an email that day from a Scripps Institute scientist who told him flat out, this virus likely came from a lab and was genetically engineered as a weapon. Okay, so think about this now. Fauci, on that day, early on, January 28, 2020, knew the following, that the virus came from Wuhan, that it surfaced within yards of that lab. That's two things. Number three, Fauci knew that he funded that lab. And number four, he knew that he authorized the gain-of-function experiments that can turn harmless bat viruses into human killers. That was a lie of omission, because you can't tell me that of the two of us sitting there, I was the only one who knew that thing was from the lab in Wuhan. Me, the economist, right? Come on. Fauci knew, and I'm telling you, Glenn, if he had simply told us that day,
I know,
come clean that day, millions of people would be alive today because we would have had a completely different strategy. Oh, and by the way, the boss would be sitting in the White House for a second term. That guy is evil. Go ahead.
Peter, I have to tell you, you're going to love the special I'm doing in 2 weeks on this, because we have all the goods on him on this particular topic, and it goes a lot deeper. And I said to my staff when we first were going through all the evidence, I said, if America would have forgiven him, if he would have just come clean and said, okay, guys, this is what happened, yada, yada. But he chose to stay silent. And Peter, you might know the answer to this question. I haven't found it yet. How much did he tell any of the engineers, the bioengineers that were working on the vaccine? Did he hold any information back because it would have incriminated him? Did he hold anything back? What did he tell people?
It was worse than that. He told us nothing. But more importantly, he organized an elaborate cover-up through this cutout named Peter Daszak, who I'm sure you'll feature in the special. Daszak is important because he's a guy at this organization called the Eco Health Alliance, right? Yep. So he was a conduit for money that would go to him as grants and then would go over to the Wuhan lab and wash through this bat lady, Xi Zhengli. Now, what Fauci did following that notification from that Scripps scientist on the 28th was he used that scientist and Daszak and others to basically write letters in support of just the opposite, that this thing came from nature. Yeah. It was a flat-out cover-up lie. So that's why I say, Glenn, I could have saved millions of lives if he had simply come clean that day. This guy is a sociopath and a narcissist. And by the way, in the In Trump Time book, that's not the only thing I fought him on. I fought him on hydroxychloroquine as a therapeutic. That stuff works. He tried, the vaccine, delay the vaccine until after the election so Trump couldn't take a win. And there's even more than that. This man, I'm so glad you're doing a special. Oh yeah. And you know what? I tell you, one of our producers will probably be in touch with you about this. We should probably include you in this. If Fauci is such a bad guy, which I believe, I've seen the documents that we will be showing on the air soon. You were there. If he was so bad, why didn't Trump fire him? Well, I don't know if you've seen the cover. Have you seen the cover of the book? It's like me standing across the boss, in the Oval Office, pointing at him in kind of a very serious conversation. And it may or may not be me telling him to fire Fauci, because I told him twice early on, as Churchill once said to Hitler, strangle that baby in the crib, fire him, get him the hell out of the White House. I don't blame the boss for not taking my advice. I'm like the economics and trade guy. What the hell do I know? It's like Azar saying keep Fauci, Redfield saying it, Stephen Hahn at the FDA saying it. All the healthcare bureaucracy saying, "Oh, this guy walks on water." But more importantly, little breaking news here. It's like it was also Mulvaney, the chief of staff, and the press team who were afraid that somehow if you fired him, it would have too much blowback. And that was such – I mean, that's like – it's like a one-day story if you'd gotten rid of him then.
Yeah.
Just get him now. Just go, like you're not part of this.
Well,
sit over at the NIH. Do not go on TV. Shut your pie hole.
Yeah, I will tell you, it would have been bad blowback, but it would be understood now, because now when this all really comes out, people are going to know what really happened and how villainous Fauci really is.